Hello and welcome to the Business Today show. I'm Udayan Mukherjee. These are difficult days for Indian digital companies, startups particularly, because while once raising hundreds of millions of dollars was just about a month's game, the whole landscape of funding has changed. Now there is a pronounced drought in venture capital and private equity funding, and Indian digital companies are struggling. Not a week goes by without news of thousands of layoffs in some of these companies. But this predicament does not apply to all companies. For example, Zoho Corp is one of these companies who've never raised venture capital or private equity capital, and therefore is not struggling or reeling like some of its counterparts in the digital universe. In fact, so much so that I like to call the founder of Zoho the ultimate bootstrap billionaire, because he's really a model of bootstrapping in that world. So it's wonderful to welcome Sridhar Vembu, who's the co-founder and CEO of Zoho Corp, to the Business Today show. Sridhar, good to see you in today, and thank you very much for joining in.
Thank you for having me, on stage.
You know, in my introduction, I was just outlining how difficult it has become for the digital universe. But you've always stayed away from venture capital funding and private equity funding, much before the difficult times arrived. Why is it? I mean, was it an article of faith for you that you will build your company up from scratch without recourse to external capital? What made you stay away?
Yeah, so our this from early days, 25 years, 27 years now. I wanted to avoid venture capital because I wanted to build a company for the long haul with really a focus on our freedom to be ourselves. Really, that was the reason. There wasn't any very deep reason, but I felt that if we took venture capital, we would have to provide an exit eventually, which would have to be an acquisition, in which case we lose our independence, or go public, in which case again we would lose our independence, so execution. So I felt that being private would give us the freedom. And what do I mean by the freedom? Freedom to invest in very long-term R&D. A lot of the things we do are focused on the long term. And example, there are products that we invested 12, 13 years ago, which are paying off now, which is very difficult to do when you have venture capital or even public markets breathing down your neck, because quarter to quarter profitability become very important. So that's why we decided to essentially stay private indefinitely, which can only be possible if we don't raise external money.
No, I take your point, and it's a very important point that you make. But was it also in a way to do with the fact that you foresaw that reliance on external capital might actually warp the business model of your company in a way that you'll not be able to focus on profitability on an annual basis to drive the company forward, which is what a lot of digital companies seem to be trapped in today? Did you foresee that problem too?
Yeah, it was clear, even in 99, 2000, there was a dot-com bubble, which was a lot of companies that raised huge rounds of money then. Those are not huge rounds now. Then fell by the wayside in 2001, 2, and then there was a big drought in VC funding for a while. That was a good lesson watching this in real time then, and it also emphasized that if you raise money, you're forced to spend it, and you lose profitability. And then when you really, when the winter arrives, money is no longer available and you're losing money. And so we decided, we will do it profitably. And that necessarily meant growth would be slower, but it's steadier. And we have actually grown steadily over the last 25 years now. We've crossed $1 billion in revenue, and we are now accelerating. The reason for the acceleration is now we have the depth and breadth of product portfolio, which we could not have built up if we had raised money, because that long-term investment was not possible. And so you are, in a sense, what venture capital forces it to grow faster by investing more heavily in sales and marketing as opposed to R&D. And sales and marketing will give you an immediate boost in growth. But if you don't invest enough in R&D, you don't have long-term growth. So that's the trade-off we were able to make: long-term growth versus more immediate growth.